All right, let's jump right in. What if I told you that a single spark of life, the rhythm of your own heart, and even the expansion of the entire universe are all dancing to the exact same tune? It sounds wild, right? Well, today we're diving into a framework that claims just that. It connects the tiniest, most intimate moments of creation to the grandest cosmic scales. So let's start with a really fundamental question. Think about it. What does the very first instant of life actually look like? You might picture something slow, maybe a quiet, gradual process. But the reality? Well, it turns out it's way more dramatic. We're talking about a literal flash of creation.
And this isn't just a theory. Researchers at MIT actually captured this moment. And what they saw is incredible. It's not a slow buildup at all. It's a sudden, instantaneous flash, a brilliant spark of light, a literal spark that ignites at the exact moment life begins.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. According to the framework we're looking at today, this isn't just some random chemical reaction. No, this flash, this perfect, coherent wave that spreads out and literally resynchronizes the whole system, that's the physical imprint of a universal law in action. The idea here is that this is an information wave, light, or knowledge that's guiding the matter. The structure is just following the signal. It's a profound shift in thinking.
And that brings us right to the heart of the Dual-Caustic Framework. Its core idea is this: there's a single, repeating pattern, a kind of universal law that governs everything. Not just life, but all of reality.
So what is this law? The framework calls it the eternal Möbius law. Now, you've probably seen a Möbius loop before, right? That twisted strip of paper with only one side. The end flows right back into the beginning, but inverted. The framework says reality works the same way. It's a three-stage process where pure potential collapses through a boundary, a cut, and then re-emerges as structured form. It's a beautiful, self-sustaining cycle. And to get specific, the framework uses two key terms to describe this duality. First, you have hayat. Think of this as the wave of pure potential, all the unseen information. Then you have ayat. This is the result, the stable, observable structure, the sign or form that we can actually see and measure. It's the particle that emerges from the wave.
So let's put it all together. You have potential, the hayat. Then you have the collapse, which the framework calls the cut. And finally, re-emergence as ayat. The key takeaway here is how potential becomes reality. It's not a slow construction project. It's an instantaneous collapse through a boundary. Remember that spark of light? And then it re-emerges as organized form. So life isn't so much assembled as it is activated. Big difference.
Okay, so that's the cellular level. Now let's scale up and see if we can find the same pattern in our own bodies. Because the framework argues this isn't just some microscopic fluke. It claims this same logic is at work on a much bigger biological scale, beating right inside our chests.
We usually think of the heart as a simple pump with 4 chambers, but there's a fascinating model that shows it's actually something much more elegant. It's a single, continuous muscle band twisted into a spiral, a helical loop. Just one seamless structure ingeniously folded onto itself.
And guess what? The way it beats follows that same Möbius logic. The whole contraction cycle is a pattern. It twists, it compresses, and then it untwists. It's a beautiful geometric inversion. The energy from one phase isn't lost. It's stored and then released to power the next phase, but inverted. It's literally a physical Möbius loop, recycling energy with every single beat. So cool.
Now, the framework makes a direct connection between this biomechanical motion and concepts from its source text, the Coherent. It sees the hearts twisting and untwisting, this folding and unfolding, as a biological echo of a much larger cosmic principle, as described in this passage about creation being a process of folding and repeating, like a scroll.
All right, so we've gone from the cell to the heart. Now, let's go bigger. A lot bigger. The framework expands its lens to the largest possible scale, the entire cosmos. The claim is that this exact same pattern is playing out in the very fabric of space-time.
And this leads us to a huge real-world puzzle in cosmology today. It's called the Hubble tension. Here's the gist of it. When scientists measure how fast the universe is expanding nearby, they get one number. But when they measure the expansion from the very early universe, they get a different number. The universe seems to be expanding faster now than our best models predict, and frankly, physicists are scratching their heads trying to figure out why.
But what if it's not an error? The Dual-Caustic Framework proposes something radical. It says the Hubble tension is not a mistake. It's a sign, an ayat, that's pointing to something deeper.
It suggests we're seeing evidence of a more complex, dual-layered reality, a universe that is itself performing a kind of grand-scale Möbius twist.
So how would that even work? Well, here's the core idea. The framework suggests there are two cosmic fields, or layers of reality, existing side by side. Imagine looking through a clean window at a mountain far away. You just see the mountain. But if you look at a fly on the window pane, you might see the fly and a faint reflection of yourself. The framework suggests that when we look at the late, nearby universe, our instruments are picking up the combined effect of both these layers, creating the tension we measure. It's a pretty wild idea.
Okay, so we've seen this incredible pattern connecting cells, hearts, and the cosmos. And you're probably wondering, where did this whole idea, this entire conceptual blueprint, actually come from?
Well, the source material is very explicit about this. It states that the framework's entire conceptual architecture is derived from a direct reading of the Quran, but it's presented in a very specific way, not as a conventional religious text, but as a kind of source code for the physical laws of the universe, revealing the fundamental patterns that can then be modeled with mathematics.
And this quote really sums up the whole philosophy perfectly. The source of the conceptual architecture was Quran, the judge of the equations is the cosmos. So the ideas and the core patterns come from one place. But, and this is crucial, the resulting model has to stand on its own 2 feet. It has to be judged by science, by whether its predictions actually match what we observe out there in the real world.
So let's just step back and look at the whole picture. It's a pretty stunning claim, right? One single scale-free law that shows up everywhere. On the cellular level, you've got the fertilization spark, life, collapse, re-emergence. On the biological level, the heartbeat, twist, compress, untwist. And on the cosmic scale, you have the Hubble tension, interpreted as the folding and unfolding of space-time. It's the same pattern, over and over again.
So the final synthesis, the big takeaway is this. The framework proposes a reality where information, what it calls light, is primary. It all begins as light, which then moves as a wave, providing the blueprint, and only then does it stabilize as form, as the matter we see and touch. From that first spark of life all the way up to the architecture of the cosmos, it's the same process.
Now, the framework itself offers an answer to this, drawn from its source code. But the question it really leaves us with is a pretty deep one to chew on. If the same geometric patterns really do appear at every single scale of reality, does that imply there's a blueprint? And if so, what is the nature of the architect? It's a profound thought to end on. What does it mean if our entire universe, from a single cell to the vastness of space, is built on one single elegant idea?